Welcome to our weekly maritime vlog. I'm Corey Ransom with International Maritime Security Associates. We have Bennett, the producer behind the camera. Today, we are going to discuss the Maritime Safety Act of 2018. We talk about laws and regulations on the vlog from time to time. We thought it would be a good idea to bring up a bill that's been passed actually through the U.S. House of Representatives and now is waiting for action in the U.S. Senate. A bill that was introduced by a couple of California congressmen, one Republican, Duncan Hunter, and one Democrat, Representative Garamendi. Hopefully I pronounced your name right, sir. It was a bill that took the Coast Guard memo and recommendations from the investigation that was subsequent to the sinking of the Faro and put some of these recommendations into law. So we thought it would be a good idea just to kind of go over and talk about some of the things that were in the Coast Guard memo and then review what moved into the actual bill. Now, it hasn't been passed into law at this point when we recorded this vlog. This is July of 2018. So make sure that you check back. We'll have links down below to the bill so you can watch it as it progresses through Congress and then hopefully for signature by the president. So as we take a look at the memo that was put forward by the Coast Guard, there were 31 safety recommendations that were put forward in this memo. There were 4 action recommendations or administrative recommendations and 1 enforcement action. So just some of the highlights. We're not going to go through the whole memo. We'll have that link down below, but thought we'd go through what I'd call kind of the top 5. So within the Coast Guard memo, they talked about some different key areas. One of them that I pulled out that I thought was interesting was the failure of the master to heed warnings and information provided by the crew members. And this is a subject that we've talked about before. It requires teamwork. Sure, there's a captain on the vessel, but it requires teamwork, and also that captain has to have the ability to trust and rely on the team members who are around him. The other big glaring part was there was really no shoreside support or DPA support for weather planning when it came to the shoreside operations from the owner of the vessel. There were also reports that the weather data by the time it got to them was 6 to 18 hours old, and there were also failures within the ABS class or the class society to do proper inspections on the vessel to bring forth some safety concerns. And number 5, there was also some failures on the safety and inspection side with the U.S. Coast Guard. So we thought it'd be a good idea also to talk about the actual bill that's making its way through Congress. Like I said, this bill has passed the House of Representatives and now has moved into the Senate for its work and then hopefully eventually to the president for his signature. So this is H.R. 6175. We'll go through just a couple of interesting highlights on this particular bill that we pulled out and thought were pretty interesting. There's 17 sections within this bill and there's 14 of them that are really recommended actions. So within this bill, one of the interesting first pieces is that the Commandant of the Coast Guard is going to be required to put together a publicly available website that will show U.S. vessels and their compliance with this. Now, this is similar to the CVSSA that we've talked about before, where the DOT has a website to show different crimes that have been reported on board cruise ships. So it's going to be interesting to see that. There's also a piece in here that the Comptroller General of the United States has a compliance part where they need to make sure that this bill gets implemented in the time frame that's been designated for the implementation. And you know as well as I do that once these bills pass, then that usually takes a while, sometimes 2 or 3 years for the CFR, the Code of Federal Regulations, to come forward. So this will be something as it goes through Congress, and if it does pass into law and is signed by the president, that we will continue to follow, because the implementation in the CFR piece is almost as big or bigger than the actual law that itself. With this, there's an update to distress systems on board vessels. That's extremely important, that distress systems have a location reporting when someone hits the button. The other piece to this is going to be an upgrade for the voyage data recorders or the VDRs that are on board the vessels. So they have better location and better kind of float away type of operations on board the ship. So that's pretty interesting when you look at those pieces from a VDR standpoint as well. There's going to be an update to training of Coast Guard personnel, which is extremely important. We talked about when we just discussed the memo that there was also a failure in the part of the Coast Guard when it comes to inspections. So there's a big piece of this that there's going to be training when it comes to the Coast Guard. There will also be the Coast Guard needs to take a look at how they do these inspections. So with that, the Coast Guard's going to look at how they have full-time active duty Coast Guard plus civilian folks who are part of this inspection piece. There's some other pieces to this bill. We're not going to go into great detail on every one of them, but those are some of the things that we saw right away that we thought were interesting as this bill moves through Congress. The passion that drives us here at IMSA on a daily basis is to provide real-time risk and threat information to mariners at sea, so issues like the Faro don't happen. 90% of the world's cargo transits on vessels at some time in its life. Every 2 to 3 days, one of these vessels is involved in some kind of incident or accident where lives are lost and cargo is lost. Over 2,500 mariners a year lose their lives because of incidents or accidents on board vessels. Hundreds of millions of dollars in property and cargo is lost as well. That's why we're putting the ARMS platform together to provide real-time risk and threat information to those vessels to make sure that issues like the Faro don't happen again. Hey, thanks for joining us today. We really appreciate all the viewers we have. If you don't subscribe to this channel, hit that button and subscribe so you get notified when we put out new videos. If you like any of the content that we have on this channel, make sure you hit the like button so we know what you guys like to see. Also, connect to us and join the conversation through our social media, located in the banner above and also in the comments section below. If there's anything that we can do for you from a risk management perspective, maritime compliance, or maritime security, don't hesitate to reach out to us because we're always happy to steer you in the right direction.